Hey, it's Dustin. Today I'm going to talk about 20 ways that writers can earn money. These are some great freelance writing job opportunities that you might want to consider. So you may have heard that writers are not in a very profitable industry, shall we say. You might have this image of like a starving artist, like this writer that just barely makes ends meet and sits typing away at a typewriter, smoking all day or whatever. That's not really the case, though. There's ways that you can write specifically to make money that are profitable. And then if you want to pursue writing like a novel or something in your spare time, you can do that. But there's definitely ways that you can earn a full-time living by doing writing. So the first one is freelance writing. Obviously, that's my favorite. That really covers basically a dozen or more areas though that I'll discuss broken down into more detail in a little bit. One of my favorite ways to make money as a writer is blogging. There's lots of ways to monetize your blog once it gets popular. You just got to get the views and then you can earn ad revenue. So every time that somebody reads one of your blogs, depending how long the page is loaded, and then some other things like if they click through ads, you might get more money, but even just them being on the page for long enough will start to earn you money. And then you can also sell affiliate products if there's something related to what you're writing about that you can sell. And there's a bunch of other ways to make money as a blogger. And I think blogging is a good opportunity because it really puts you more in control. Whereas if you're freelance writing and you're writing for someone else, you don't own the content and you get paid once, but then you don't really have any of your own like intellectual property, shall we say, that continues to make you money into the future. So blogging is a good way to kind of get into the passive income side of writing. Another way that's also quite passive is self-publishing books. These can be either fiction or nonfiction. I've done this myself in the past. I've had some decent success with it. I never got too into it, but I published about a dozen books and I've maybe made a couple $1,000s over the year, so it's not too bad. For the time that I invested, I think I got a good return on it. There are some self-published authors that do fiction that are doing really well. People that, if you can pump out like 5 or 6 books a year, especially, like if you write one every 2 months, it's going to take you some time to kind of get into that routine. But if you can write, I would say like 5,000 words a day, you should be able to hit that goal. And then there are a lot of writers that are making 6-figure incomes publishing fiction on Amazon. So that's one thing that you can do. The other is my number 3 thing is press releases. So companies, whenever they have big news or publicity events, they need to get the word out to newspapers or even just on their own website. They might want to announce it or in newsletters. So they need someone like you to kind of put a PR spin on whatever is going on and help them get that news out there. Magazine articles are another way that you can earn money as a writer. This one usually you have to cold pitch the magazines and give them an idea for an article that you'd like to write. And then if they approve it, you get to go with it. You might even write the article ahead of time and then just submit it to them. And if they like it, then they'll give you good money. If you're writing for larger magazines, especially like the ones that you see like in the grocery store at the checkouts, those pay pretty well. I've heard people get like $1 per word even, so that can be really lucrative, but chances are you won't get a ton of those. But if you put the time into cold pitch, like say a dozen magazines a day with different articles, eventually you should hit one that pays good. And then say you write a 1,000-word article and they pay $1 a word, that's like $1,000. So that's pretty good. Journalism is another one. You usually have to go to school for journalism, I think. And also I wouldn't really recommend people to get into journalism right now because it's kind of a dying industry. There is like online news reporting and kind of more independent reporting is picking up steam, but as opposed to writing for newspapers, I wouldn't recommend getting into that because it's kind of a dying industry. There are writing competitions that you can make some money at. That's not as sustainable of a thing, I guess, but if you have a bunch of poetry that you want to enter in a competition, just if you're going to write it anyways, you should look for competitions that it might be eligible for. Try and make some money that way, or at least you can get your name out there. People see that you win and it gets announced somewhere. So that could help you. Social media posts and content for social media, that's another big one. Somebody is writing all of those tweets for big companies like Wendy's and McDonald's, and also Facebook posts. Those big companies, they pay social media managers a hefty sum every month just to make the content for them and schedule it out. You might also do some of the customer relations, like replying to comments to people. Depends what the role entails, but you can discuss that with the company and see what they want specifically. Another thing that you can do is product descriptions. So basically anytime that you go on a website, say you're like looking for a pair of shoes, there'll be a description of the pair of shoes. Somebody obviously wrote that. It may or may not come from the main company. It might even be the store might have to hire their own writers to write those product descriptions. Normally product descriptions don't pay the best, but it can be a good way to get into the industry. That might be the kind of thing that you find on content mills, but if you find a company that you can work with directly, then you might be able to get a bit more money writing descriptions for them. Copywriter is another big job that writers can get. It's probably one of the more profitable ones because it's associated with making companies lots of money, so they pay quite handsomely for it. Basically, most of what copywriters will be doing is writing sales pages and creating funnels to help sell products. So anytime that you've went to buy an online course and there's those pages that are like 6 pages long that address all of your possible objections and stuff like that, that was written by a copywriter most likely. You can write white papers. Those are basically in-depth reports that companies want made. I don't have a ton of experience with that, but apparently those pay very well, so you might want to look into that. Guides or manuals are another thing that companies might hire you to make. They can be a bit more boring to write, but they pay quite well. It's just a lot more technical, so you might not enjoy it as much, and it might be tougher to write through. You might not be able to sit down and write like a manual 1,000 words an hour. It might be a lot slower than that. Another thing is grant writing and writing business plans. So both nonprofits and corporations, they need people to write proposals for them. So nonprofits need to write proposals to get government funding, and then businesses, especially startups, they'll need a writer to help them write a business plan that's compelling, that convinces banks and people or like angel investors or whatever to loan them money. So they get writers for that. So basically any kind of business, whether it's for profit or not for profit, will need a writer at some point. There's ghostwriting. That's not necessarily a specific category of writing, but it's just it just means that you don't get your name as a byline on the article or whatever you're writing. A lot of writing I find that clients want is ghostwriting, so you don't get credit for it, but usually they compensate you by paying like an extra couple of cents per word to make up for that. There is legal writing, which basically you could be drafting contracts or something. For that, that's another one that's a bit more specialized. You might need to have gone to a little bit of, not necessarily like law school to become a full lawyer, but you need some basic law knowledge to be able to do that. Resume writing is another big one. People, whether they're just getting out of university or whether they're, say, like CEOs or somebody that really want to get high paying jobs, they definitely could pay somebody to write a resume for them. So basically anybody might want to hire someone to write a resume. One that is not necessarily ethical is academic writing. So students can pay you to write essays for them and stuff like that, or to do their assignments. That's one area that you can make some money. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I hear that it's quite lucrative. So if you don't have any qualms with the ethical side of that, you might want to consider that. And last one that I'll mention is speech writing. So politicians, or basically anybody that needs to give a speech at like award ceremonies or anything like that, they may need a writer to write a speech, whether it's like a a motivational speech, a thank you speech, if they're making some kind of big announcement about how their company is changing, anything like that. That kind of goes hand in hand with making press releases as well, but it's specifically, as opposed to being presented as like a written piece, it's more written in a speaking style. So that's very specialized as well. Yeah, that's 20 ways that you can make money as a writer online. If you find this helpful, go ahead and subscribe, give me a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, if you know of any other opportunities for writers, go ahead and put them in the comments as well. And I'll see you next time.